For our latest Euronews Debates, we've been at the European Parliament in Brussels asking the question, how can Europe shape the future of biosimilar medicines? Our panel made up of guests representing industry, policymaking and patients. Let's take a look at some of the key takeaways.
Biosimilar, it's in the word. Bio is a reference to biologics, and a biologic is basically a large molecule. It's about 800 times bigger than a small molecule that you may associate with aspirin. We know biologics as products such as insulins, as oncology treatments, rheumatoid arthritis, etc. They come from living cells. They're made in bioreactors. And from that perspective, you get 1 batch, 2 batch, 3 batch, 4 batch through the life. A biosimilar is a similar version of that reference product. And it continues that journey of referencing off a batch, referencing it. And through the comparable methodology and technology they have, they work within tightly regulated parameters. So you end up with a similar product.
But just give us an overview of how they can be used in the health systems.
They are used both first line and second line across Europe, and they are predominantly used for rheumatoid arthritis, non-small cell lung cancer, insulin treatment of diabetes. They are generally chronic disease or cycle diseases that you see coming through. And their impact on medicine and for patients has been monumental since their inception 30, 40 years ago.
It's true that biosimilars have had a massive impact. So at a minimum, they have saved healthcare systems 18 billion euros. Okay, this is at a minimum because we cannot include in that the calculation of confidential discounts. So it's much higher than that. So that is fantastic for healthcare systems that are struggling financially, as everybody knows. However, we're not in the business of saving money. We're in the business of saving lives and improving lives. This is where we want to go.
We are now dealing with a community that is fully aware of the importance of biosimilars, but on the other hand, we are not experiencing yet the big changes that were supposed to be. Just to give you an example, in our disease area, the percentage of patients that have accessibility to biosimilars, to biologics in general, is between 20 and 25%. With the introductions of biosimilars, nothing has been really changed. That means that there is still a lot of things to do to better include biosimilars in the protocols, and also to make a level of awareness higher, not only in the patient community, but I would also say in the healthcare professional community.
I think we've had biosimilars since 2015, so they've been around for a long time. We have 1 million patient years of experience, very positive experience, because the European Medicines Agency, they track these medicines with a digital pharmacovigilance system specifically, so we know this data is very clear and coherent and very, very positive. They made a huge difference across Europe because these biosimilars have increased access by 50% over the period when there were no biosimilars. So this is really, 50% more patients treated, which is huge. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't mean that all of the patients who should be treated are receiving that treatment. And Luisa made a very, very clear point. There have to be policies to enable greater use of biosimilar medicines. These are very low-cost medicines, so much less expensive than the original version, so the healthcare systems can afford it, but there are different barriers out there. Luisa was talking about inflammatory bowel disease, but we know for rheumatoid arthritis, also in Italy, there are about 25,000 patients who could be treated and who are not treated. But we also have some very difficult situations. So in some Central and Eastern European countries, they are using biosimilars, which is positive, but there are restrictions to the prescribing. So very few patients are being treated. The difference between the highest country in Europe of use of biologics, which is Denmark, and Poland, which is the lowest, is 25 times lower access in Poland. So you see we've got some work to do. And these are affordable, so we need to work with the governments to get these medicines to patients, to get Louisa's patient community treated, but also in other countries as well.
The current situation is that financing, organization and management of healthcare system rests with the member states. What we can do is support national policies, provide recommendations, guidelines, etc., but we cannot legally harmonize things like that. So when we speak of medicines concretely, we have two-level systems. So first, the approval to put medicines in the market in the first place, meaning that you have proved that they are safe and efficient. This is done by EMA, by the European Medicines Agency. But once EMA makes its decision, when you put the medicine on the market, whether it will be funded by national health insurance is decided by each individual member state according to its own rules.
So it's a bit of it's a lottery.
Yeah, because since our system is predominantly public, right? So these are public health insurance funds.
So shouldn't the EU take more control of this?
Yeah. So there are possibilities to influence this, but you cannot legally unify this completely.
I know that if a drug is approved by EMA and the national medical agencies, it's of course safe. But I think again, in terms of raising awareness and educating the audience, the general audience, but also the patient and the medical audience, it's important to stress the point that we are talking about something that is fully transparent, safe, and can give the opportunity to much more patients to be treated with innovative drugs.
You are going to have different groups of patients, right? You're going to have patients that question every move of their doctor. What are you doing? Why are you deciding on this? Why are you giving me that? Others that might have a mild interest, and then others that don't have any interest at all. They leave it in the hands of the people that they trust. Yep. So in terms of that kind of relationship, how important is this educational aspect and also giving the patient a greater voice in actually the treatment that's ultimately going into their body?
It's something that we've been challenged with tackling since the inception. I think the quality of the product has come up, made here or in Europe to a certain standard. That's very apparent and a good reference point. The information through the regulatory process and beyond with the physician, with the pharmacist, who may or may not be involved directly. And then as you look to the nurse, the nursing community with self-administered products, subcutaneous product, and the training of that, and the use of maybe a training pen works well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, healthcare has really become one of the main European issues, and it wasn't before. So traditionally, healthcare was always a marginal topic here in the Brussels bubble, let's be honest. But this has changed after the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we are really discussing this. We are discussing many issues here in the Parliament, in the Commission, among stakeholders, many healthcare issues. And now we have this really big opportunity to make big changes in terms of European health policy. Actually, to create European health policy, because I think we didn't have European health policy before. And also one thing that I also wanted to mention about the allocation of resources. That's from the politician's point of view and policymakers' point of view very important, because whenever you decide to fund medicine A, you are also deciding not to channel this funding into medicine B. Right. And then you have a problem if this medicine A is something very expensive, it only prolongs life, I don't know, for 3 or 4 months, etc. These funds could be used elsewhere, but then we have a lot. But then the problem is about public perception, big public pressure to provide funding for this sort of medicine. So a lot of these kind of discussions are politicized, are very populist in many cases, and are not based on evidence and on rationale.
So there's a huge untapped potential. Okay, so over the next 5 years, biosimilars could target 100 new medicines. So this would bring competition, so price competition, and therefore improved access to 100 medicines in Europe. If successful, this will mean that biosimilars will be equivalent to generic medicines in terms of the sustainability, the access and savings that they can bring to healthcare systems. So it's absolutely huge. So if there's any country that doesn't focus on biosimilars, they're going to lose all of this opportunity for the healthcare system. So this is something absolutely huge. The challenge that we have is that for many of these medicines, they're targeting very narrow spectrum diseases, so very small patient population diseases, so extremely rare cancers or orphan diseases, for example. And we need to update, and the European Commission is updating its legislation on the pharmaceutical regulation to enable biosimilars to be developed for these very small rare disease populations. This is super important because these are also the most expensive drugs, are typically in these very rare conditions, so they are the highest cost for the healthcare system. So if we don't bring biosimilar competition to them, we will run out of money in the healthcare system, literally. So we need to enable this, but also because probably in many countries in Europe, the poorer countries, there is no access to these therapies currently. So if we want to create that access, we're going to need biosimilars.
So we have to tell the public that healthcare costs will continue to rise. There is no magic stick to reduce it, because, as you said, elderly population is getting older and older, so the life expectancy is bigger and bigger, but this means bigger healthcare costs. That's
and COVID drained a lot of resources.
Yeah, also because the focus was there, a lot of diagnostics was delayed. We'll see the consequences in the years to come. We still don't have all the data. Also, we have all of these new technologies which cost a lot of money, and this is precisely why biosimilars, I think, are the future, because here you can get, if you can get the same result in terms of safety and efficiency with 30 or 40% less investment, plus the fact that maybe if the whole regulatory procedure if it is also simpler, it also means spending less money, for instance, for phase 3 clinical trials, then this is something which is definitely a big opportunity for the healthcare systems.
I think it's about balance, both short-term and long-term, and we're seeing that. And you know, the policies that will come, we're welcoming them, and we also want to be part of that, which I'll come to in a minute, which is around the partnership and the partnership on policy and direction. And I think there's good debate here, and these are the characters that need to talk. But ultimately, it's about patients, and you know, whether you're saving lives or transforming more lives. This is about the output. So as long as we can agree that that is the overall output, and we use the wealth of data and experience that we've got, I actually have a lot of hope.
I would like to see less inequality in accessing drugs, and I would like to see equal treatment in every European countries. It was said by the other panelists, there is still a lot of differences between countries, and I hope that with biosimilars, this big issue will be finally solved. So all patients in every European countries can have the same access and the same possibility of being treated.
We also should engage with the member states, try to share best practices, provide them guidelines, and provide them with incentives to actually engage more and use biosimilars more. And what is also important is to keep momentum and to have all stakeholders working together to achieve this. So we need patient groups, we need healthcare professionals, but we also need pharma industry. We need to engage them as partners, not as enemies. We have to create partnership with them,
5 seconds.
And only with that we can create better health outcomes for our patients.
Here, really, with biosimilars, this is an incredible opportunity. When you think about healthcare systems, right, you've always got the finance minister looking at the healthcare system saying, hold on, don't spend too much money. You know, we want to treat the patients, but, you know, we've got to also balance the budget. And here we have an opportunity with biosimilars to satisfy the finance minister, but more importantly, to treat more patients with the same amount or sometimes less money. And I think this is really what is missing. If we have a focused agenda on saying, look, these are the number of patients currently not treated. With the biosimilars, we can save them so much money and still treat more of them or provide some additional services they might need they can't afford right now. You know, that is really an incredible win for the doctors, for the patients, for the healthcare system in terms of better health outcomes, and for the finance ministry.
That's the highlights from our latest Euronews Debates on biosimilar medicines. You can watch the full debate on our website at euronews.com. Bye for now.